You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
I am Ahonu, and with me is my lovely Aingeal Rose, and we also have our friend Kimberly Dawn in the room with us. And we also have some very good friends going back a lot of years. Marianne is here, Terry is here, Susan Anderson, we have Kim, and we have the author himself, Andrew Rupnow, and we have Margaret from Wales as well. So here's the little bit of housekeeping. We want everybody to remain muted while we go through the reading, but we will open up the mics after the reading is finished so that we can enjoy a discussion about this book. Now, I'm going to give my own little introduction to everything. We're then going to ask Andrew to come and read the introduction from the book, and then we're going to go into him reading the first chapter, and then we will ask Kimberly to read the second chapter, and we'll have Margaret, we hope, to read the third chapter in her fabulous Australian accent. So the little bit of background to this book is that Aingeal Rose and I have a very good friend living in Sedona who met Andrew and introduced his book as a raw manuscript to us. And we contacted Andrew to see if we could publish it because we recognized the absolute wonder and beauty of what he had written. And thankfully he agreed, and we've published it, and since then it has some absolutely fabulous feedback. I mean, people are saying this is revolutionary, this is amazing, what a refreshing look at the teachings of Jesus, how different this is from our school upbringing and indoctrination, all of those kinds of comments, and they're all very positive. And so we were delighted with that kind of feedback, and that's why we wanted to do a reading, that we can get it out to more people. So I'm going to just read the back cover. It's not going to destroy anything that Andrew will tell us about. It's just framing the whole thing for us so that we know where we are before we even enter into the book. And it says, what if Jesus didn't come to be worshipped, but to be followed? For 2,000 years, we've built cathedrals to a teacher who said the only true temple is within. Yeshua shatters the dogma and reveals the revolutionary truth. Jesus was not a religious founder, but a master metaphysician, a spiritual scientist teaching the technology of consciousness. Drawing from the suppressed Essene Gospels, the Book of Enoch, ancient Aramaic teachings, and modern quantum physics, this groundbreaking work decodes Christ's message for the modern seeker. His miracles weren't supernatural, they were demonstrations of natural law. His parables weren't stories, they were energetic blueprints for manifestation. The kingdom isn't in a distant heaven. The power isn't outside you. The second coming isn't an external event. You are the light of the world, and this book shows you how to turn it on. So with that, let me, with great excitement, bring on Andrew, the author, Andrew Rupnow. You're very welcome. Delighted to see you here.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And it's been quite the experience going through the publication events, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. And so thank you for your guidance and getting this book out there to everybody, because I was, honestly hesitant at first to publish the book, so I wasn't quite sure on where it would land. But this was originally a research paper that was written for my master's, and so bringing together the Essene Gospel of Peace, the Dead Sea Scrolls, 1599 Geneva Bible, and many other books, and pulling out all those fundamental messages that Christ was teaching, where it traditionally is framed from a different angle in without being too, conspiratory. A lot of it, what we found over time is framed in a way traditionally to maintain control of certain things. So I think this, in my heart, this message and this way of looking at what Jesus was teaching is his, or was his, true message. So with that, again, thank you for helping me through this process and getting to getting this book out to everybody. So would you like me to start with the introduction?
Yes, please. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, read the introduction that you have written, Andrew, and then we'll go straight into Kimberly reading the first chapter.
Awesome. All right. So has anybody grown up in the Catholic Church like I did? Yeah, it's quite something. And from a young age, I was immersed in the traditions of the Catholic Church. I was baptized as an infant, took my first communion before attending school, and served as an altar boy through my early teens, like many children brought up in the religion. These early rituals and devotions were a crucial component of my spiritual foundation, though they sometimes felt more obligatory than enlightening. And just a side note on that, I just remembered attending Mass at 7 a.m. on Sundays, and my mom dropping me off at church, and she would go home and sleep. Well, my brother and I were the altar boys. All right. During those years, my guiding figure was Father Tony of St. Anthony's in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. Compassionate, kind, practical, and grounded priest who frequently reminded me that the next best thing to the altar was the bar. The bar was right across the street from the church. Suggesting a spirituality that embraced both sacred ritual and everyday humanity. You want to hear a funny story when I was an altar boy?
I do.
Yes, please.
So on Christmas Eve, my family would always gather, and I was probably 12, I think. And so my family gathered on Christmas Eve, and then we would go to midnight mass. So that evening, I decided to eat all the smoked salmon that was available that night before mass. And so I ate it all, went to mass, and we're about halfway through mass, and my stomach did not feel great. So I ran into the back where the priest's bathroom was, and ended up just violently vomiting, and I didn't close any of the doors. So it echoed throughout the entire church, throughout the entire cathedral that evening. But I certainly felt better afterwards. Yeah, good times. All right. However, as I grew older, my understanding of the divine began to expand beyond traditional doctrine. Certain personal experiences, sometimes unsettling and otherworldly, challenged the organized religious framework and opened me to deeper dimensions of spiritual reality. One such event happened in my teenage bedroom at my parents' house where I grew up in Menominee Falls. As I lay in bed trying to sleep, a shadowy, paralyzing force pinned me down, silencing my voice and freezing my body. I felt an immense swirling energy enter through my chest and come out through my back. And it was really intense, I have to say. I mean, and scary, because I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't move my body. I could hear, I could sense things, but I couldn't move and I couldn't speak. And it just felt this energy pour into my chest and out my back, and it would just swirl constantly. I don't know what was going on, but once I called upon Christ, it went away entirely. About 10 years later, I think I was 25-ish, somewhere in there. We had Christmas at my in-laws in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. And I had a similar experience. I went to bed early that night and into the master bedroom and was laying down. I could hear everybody talking in the living room, carrying on, having a good time. And all of a sudden, I felt a huge weight on my chest. It wasn't the swirling energy, but it was similar where I was paralyzed. I couldn't speak. I could hear what was going on. And it just felt like it was this crushing force on my chest. And the only thing that I could think of was to ask and reach out to Christ for help. And as soon as I did that, it went away. So the first experience, I never told anybody about that for a long, long time. And the second experience, I went out and told everybody immediately that I was still awake, that was carrying on. Well, what I found out that evening is that property that my in-laws had was Native American grounds. And my mother-in-law had similar experiences on that property. She said one night she woke up and there was a bunch of fingers tapping on the windows of the house all around. And she saw, another night she saw my father-in-law spirit actually come out of his body while he was sleeping and walk around and try to get dressed. While his physical body was still laying there, his spiritual body came out. And so once, so we started talking about that on that Christmas Eve and what was going on in this property. So we decided to have more of a ceremonial event to try to help these spirits move on, and so we could, enjoy the property and treat it respectfully, but try to help the souls move on and let them be in peace. So we did that. So when we had that ceremony, we had a priest come out, and once that occurred, we didn't have any more of those events. So it was a successful ceremony to get those spirits to move on. Okay. So these events are not ghost stories, but are described as a life-defining experiences that prompted a lifetime search for deeper spiritual truth and understanding. I began to question the doubts of the version of Jesus institutional religion presented. The inner knowing, ignited by direct experience and intuitive insight, suggested that there was more to Jesus than what was written in canonical texts. I sensed that behind the historical figure of Jesus stood a metaphysical teacher, a spiritual guide aligned not only with divine, but also with the principles of inner transformation and awakened consciousness. The result of that search is this book, which draws from both the canonical and suppressed sacred texts, as well as metaphysical interpretations of scripture and mystic traditions, examining the teachings of Yeshua, Jesus, not only as religious doctrine, but also as a map for spiritual ascension. This examination prompted the question, what if Jesus were not only a savior, but also a metaphysician, a master of vibrational energy, breath, stillness, and divine alignment? What if his words were encoded with the energetic keys meant to awaken the soul? In this work, my goal is to explore these questions through a spiritual, intuitive, and scholarly perspective. The journey of understanding Yeshua is ultimately about remembering and awakening one's divine being. This book, Yeshua, the Metaphysical Mastery of Jesus Christ, is driven by my personal experiences and intuitive creative intelligence, which seek to uncover the truth, facts, and divine laws that govern the universe naturally. This work represents my piece of knowing, not just believing.
Wow. Well, I'd like to say a couple of words here before we go into the first chapter. And I would not want your book, Andrew, or this session to be a knocking of the Catholic Church by any means, because, you know, we've all learnt and grown somehow from it. But when you were telling those stories, I have to say my mind was going back in time to, and I had very similar background to what you just described, the altar boy, you know, all of that service to the church. And I have a string of stories too. Oh my God. The one I remember in particular was my father was an alcoholic, so I was always very cautious of drink alcohol, right? But yet there was I, as a young fella, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 years old, putting the wine into the little crucibles, you know, for bringing out onto the altar. And I remember not once, not twice, numerous times where the priest would take that and drink it and then say, fill it up again before bringing it out to the altar. And that was just one. And then there was another time I remember too, I was skipping down the street with my sister, holding hands. Now, I don't know what age we were young, you know, again, maybe 7, 8, 9, that age, in total innocence, holding her hands. And this priest, who was a real domineering character, stopped us and more or less accused me of like sexual contact. You know, it was a most embarrassing thing, and really shook my innocence is what happened. You know, that I was doing something like against the church, or that was a sin. And it really hurt me. And like I say, I remember it to this day. And there's countless other stories like that too. But having said that, what it did was, I felt in some ways built some kind of character, or at least made us question, like what you're doing and you were doing, Andrew, made us question. And I think that's a good thing, because now we have a philosophy that says question everything, no matter what it is. Question everything, question everything. So thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Andrew. Does anybody else want to say anything before we go into the first chapter? Oh, Kimberly just reminded me that, yeah, you read the introduction and there's a preface to come. Or you read the preface and now it's the introduction. Okay.
That's right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood. Yeah, would you mind, Andrew, go ahead and read that introduction? Yeah.
I suppose. All right. Introduction. The frequency of awakening. For 2,000 years, the world has worshipped a man who came not to be worshipped, but to be followed. We have built cathedrals to a teacher who taught that the only true temple is within. We have created religions based on a savior whose most revolutionary message was that we must save ourselves. The figure of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua, his given Aramaic name, has been veiled in dogma, doctrine, and division. But beneath the layers of organized religion, a powerful, vibrant truth has been waiting patiently for us to remember. Yeshua was not a founder of religion, but a master of metaphysics, a teacher of frequency. His message was not about blind belief, but about conscious embodiment. He spoke of a kingdom, not in a distant heaven, but as a state of consciousness available to us now. He performed miracles not by breaking the laws of nature, but by mastering them. He taught of a light, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a fundamental creative energy of the universe that resides within each of us. And side note, with today's technology, this is actually all being proven. So, technology is now finally catching up to what Jesus was actually teaching us 2,000 years ago, and now we can actually prove what he was teaching and in the quantum physics world. Yes. Today, humanity stands at the precipice of a great awakening. We are beginning to speak Yeshua's language once more, through we may call it by different names: quantum physics, neuroplasticity, coherence, heart-brain harmony. Modern mystics and scientists like Dr. Joe Dispenza are demonstrating that we can heal our bodies and create new realities by changing our internal state, our energy. This is the very essence of what Yeshua taught. He wasn't just a storyteller. He was a spiritual scientist, a way shower for human potential. This book is an invitation to meet Yeshua anew, to strip away the dogma and hear the frequency beneath the words. We will explore the forgotten texts, the Essene Gospels, the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Law of Light, not as historical curiosities, but as practical guides to inner transformation. We will see how his teachings align with the universal truths found in traditions like Kriya Yoga, I probably butchered that, as to the West. Oh man. Paramahansi Yogananda, who also spoke as a universal Christ consciousness dwelling in all souls. Yeshua's ultimate teaching was one of radical empowerment. When he said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he was handing you the key to your own divine power. When he said, "You are the light of the world," he was not speaking to a chosen few. He was speaking to all of us, to you. The time for outsourcing your divinity is over. The age of the gatekeeper is done. The journey ahead is not about following a religion, but about activating a consciousness. The Christ is not a person to be worshipped, but a frequency to be embodied. Let's begin.
I'd just like to say, wow. I didn't grow up in a church at all. And wow, that really hits my heart. I love it.
This is Kimberly.
All right, chapter 1. Jesus, the metaphysician. You are the technology. For centuries, we have been taught to see Yeshua's power as something external, something uniquely his. But what if his true mission was to show us that this same power is our own birthright? To view Yeshua as a metaphysician is to shift from seeing him as an idol to seeing him as our instructor. He didn't come to show us what he could do. He came to show us what we could do. Metaphysics is simply the science of what lies beyond the physical. It is the study of consciousness, vibration, and the energetic laws that govern reality. In this light, Yeshua's most famous teachings are not just moral platitudes. They are precise scientific formulas for transformation. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. This is the ultimate metaphysical statement. Yeshua is describing the quantum field, an infinite, intelligent field of energy and potential that exists within and around us. It is not a place you go to after you die. It's a state of being you access when you go within, beyond your body, beyond your environment, and beyond time. When you quiet the noise of the analytical mind through meditation and connect to this field, you connect to the kingdom. Next, if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Mystical traditions worldwide, from the yogis of India to the Essenes Yeshua studied with, have known of the third eye, the pineal gland. This is the spiritual antenna in the center of your brain. When you activate it through focused inner awareness, it transduces higher frequencies, light, information, consciousness, into your physical body, literally filling it with light and energy. Yeshua was giving a direct instruction for activating your higher sensory perception. Next, thy faith hath made thee whole. He never said, my power has made you whole. Why? Because he understood the technology of healing. In metaphysical terms, faith is not blind hope. It's a state of elevated emotion and unwavering inner knowing. As Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches, when your thoughts and feelings are aligned, you broadcast a powerful electromagnetic signature into the quantum field. The people Yeshua healed were able to align their inner state with the frequency of wholeness he was embodying. His presence acted as a tuning fork, and their faith was their ability to resonate with that frequency. They healed themselves. He simply showed them how. Oh, so awesome. Yeshua's life was a demonstration of this inner technology. His frequent withdrawals into the wilderness were not escapes. They were essential for energetic calibration. His fasting was not for penance. It was for vibrational purification, clearing the vessel of his body so it could hold a higher frequency of light. He was a living bridge between the world of form and the world of frequency. His parables, seen through this lens, become energetic blueprints. The mustard seed is not just about a plant. It's a lesson in quantum manifestation, showing how a tiny, focused intention can create a vast reality. He did not come to create a religion of followers who would forever feel separate from their creator. He came to awaken a new humanity of masters, beings who understood that the divine is not an external deity to be prayed to, but an inherent consciousness to be activated and expressed. As he declared, first pointing to himself as the light of the world, and then turning to all of us and stating, ye are the light of the world. This is not a metaphor. It is an instruction. You are the technology. The time to remember how to use it is right now. Powerful.
Okay, I'll read chapter 2 and then we'll ask Margaret to read chapter 3. Well, actually, I'm just noticing that chapter 2 is broken into part 1, part 2, and part 3. So I'll read the introduction to it, and then we'll ask Margaret to read part 1. This is the Lost User Manuals for Your Soul. What if the most sacred texts in history were never meant to be worshipped? What if they weren't meant to be placed on a pedestal, bound in leather, and revered from a distance? What if, instead, they were intended to be used? Imagine discovering a series of ancient documents, a user manual for the most advanced technology in the universe, the human being. This manual wouldn't be about dogma or rules. It would be a guide to your own operating system, a set of instructions for activating your latent power, and a map of the incredible, unseen realities you have the ability to access. This is precisely what the Essene Gospels, the Book of Enoch, and the Aramaic teachings of Yeshua, the law of light, represent. For centuries, they have been dismissed, hidden, or misinterpreted. But when viewed through a modern lens of metaphysics and quantum science, they reveal themselves as interconnected parts of a profound and practical guide to spiritual mastery. They are the lost user manuals for your soul. Go ahead, Margaret.
Writing your name down in my book, mister. You sprung that on me. You're going to have a smack. You can laugh.
I just love the Australian accent.
Yeah. Say that to all the girls. Right. Part 1, the practice. The Essene Gospels and the physics of communion. The Essenes, the mystical desert community believed to have been a formative part of Yeshua's education, were not simple nature worshippers. They were masters of energetic alignment. Their communions with the angels of the earthly mother and the heavenly father were a sophisticated daily practice what we might now call biofield tuning. They understood a fundamental truth. The human body is not a solid, isolated object. It is a vibrant, oscillating field of energy, constantly in communication with the larger energy fields of the planet and the cosmos. To be healthy, joyful, and spiritually connected, your personal energy field must be in coherent resonance with these greater fields. The angel of the sun. Each morning, the Essenes would face the rising sun, breathing deeply and consciously absorbing its light. They taught that this was not just about physical warmth, but about drawing in a higher order intelligent energy, a communion with the angel of sun. Today, science affirms that sunlight triggers the production of serotonin and regulates our circadian rhythms, directly impacting our mood and energy. Metaphysically, light is information. The Essenes were consciously programming their cells with the life-affirming information of the cosmos. The angel of water. Their practice of baptism and the ritual bathing was about more than physical cleansing. It was an energetic purification. They understood that water holds memory and vibration, a concept explored by modern researchers like Dr. Masaru Emoto. By immersing themselves in clean, flowing water with sacred intention, they were clearing their energy field of dissonant frequencies, the energetic residue of fear, anger, or illness. The angel of air. Breath for the Essenes was the carrier of spirit. Deep, conscious breathing was the primary method for drawing in the angel of air, filling the body not just with oxygen, but with prana, or life force energy. This is the exact science of pranayama in the yogic traditions, a technique used for millennia to alter consciousness, calm the nervous system, and connect with the divine. The Essene Gospels are a practical blueprint for sacred physics. They teach us to stop seeing ourselves as separate from our environment and to begin actively and lovingly partnering with the elemental forces that create and sustain us. This is the foundational practice for preparing the body to hold a higher frequency of light.
Well read. Okay. We have just 3 weeks in total to complete this book, and it's not a big book by any means. It's just 80 pages. So I think we should just stop there and let's just go into a little discussion, and we'll be able to do another hour next Saturday, and then we should finish off on the third Saturday. So is there anybody wants to raise questions or ask Andrew anything, or just discuss in general what we've covered so far?
I like that there's a specific explanation for the angel of sun, the angel of water, and the angel of air, and ways that we can include that into our life and what that would mean for our development. That has made a difference. I've been using them, and it makes a difference.
Wow, well done, well said.
That's wonderful. Yeah, what I found too, to comment on that, sunrise and sunset are really good times to make that connection. So getting up early, watching the sunrise, just staring at the sun, literally, that provides certain frequencies of light, like red light therapy, if you've heard of that. So now we can manufacture the red light therapy. So it's very similar to that, where you take that red light from the sun directly in the morning and at sunset. It really changes your cell structure, and it would be the proper term. It almost like bonds it or makes it more coherent. So taking in that energy from the sun in the morning and in the evening, from a health perspective, it's really helped me. And that's the same thing that the Essenes have done in the past.
I like the fact that well, hang on, let me clear what I'm trying to say in my own head. My upbringing with the teachings of Jesus, the way I was taught, was that it was always something out there to be attained or achieved. It was always distant. But what you've just described there, Andrew, and the point that Mary Ann brought up, is that it's actually very practical, very everyday stuff, like you say, the sunrise, the sunset, water. It's just very practical, very ordinary, very 3D. There's nothing, like, while it might be mystical, there's nothing unattainable about it. That's what I like about the way you've described that.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And in the world of cymatics, I don't know if anybody's familiar with cymatics. Yeah. So
I just purchased somatic discs from France.
oh yeah, there you go. So yeah, so you understand how frequency can
Yeah.
create different patterns in water, in sand, or in different matter.
Yeah.
And the human body being 80% or more water, when there's different frequencies around us all the time, that changes. You can just imagine what that does to your body and to the water molecules inside your body, how the different frequencies react with that. So being in tune really helps your own physical body, because it's going to directly impact the water, the substance inside your body. So if you can envision somatics and what that simply does to water and to like sand particles, what that's doing to your own body.
Yeah, can I add something? This is Francis.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. So listening, I thought, yeah, it relates to us, everyday things. And some of the things that I thought was like Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, Buddhism. So that's what I thought. Yeah.
Good point, Francis. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something, Kimberly?
Oh, I was just going to say, we've heard, how many times have we joked about growing up over the years of, we need a user manual for what it's like to be a human, let alone things like parenting or anything interacting in the world.
Yeah.
And I've certainly heard that a lot, but it really struck me again, this idea that what Jesus was offering us was a user manual for activating our latent power. And the inspiration behind those words to really desire strongly to activate. Well, really, it's almost about removing the layers that are blocking that more so than it is trying to find that power. It's more about, Jesus teaches a lot of forgiveness, and that's a way of removing the obstacles to who we really are.
Yeah.
That and the story of, that when he came upon someone to heal them, he just stood there with a frequency, to your point, Andrew, with the cymatics. And that person, with their willingness, was able to resonate with his highest pure healing frequency to heal themselves. And all that's just very inspirational to take this seriously. Read the dang user manual, pay attention,
Yes.
and apply it.
Yes,
So.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Andrew. And it's about guilt. And, we're perceiving guilt all over the world, everywhere. It's one of the reasons why we react to stuff and we judge because of it. But what I'd love to know from you, in terms of what you've written here, did you go through a process of guilt insofar as you were getting these ideas about what Yeshua, Jesus, was really teaching, but there was a contradiction with what the church was teaching? So did you find yourself in a kind of a conflict at any point in time?
I wouldn't say it was a conflict. It was more about remembrance.
Oh, okay.
Whereof it's something, once I started digging into this, it was an enlightening process. I didn't feel guilty. It was more of like an aha moment for me personally. And, finding the answers that I've been looking for a long time. And, everybody has some degree of intuitive intelligence or as people say, a voice talking in the back of their mind, or like something nudging them. And my intuition always has told me there's more to the story. There's more to the story. And going through this process and, finding the different answers, I guess would be the easiest way to say it, and cross-correlating different texts from traditional Bibles. So there's over 450 different versions of the Bible, by the way. So cross-correlating what the Bible has said in different variations, along with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which has been very, very powerful and really have been overlooked by a lot of different religions. And there's a lot of really good information in there in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which I think is more insightful than a traditional Bible. But I guess to answer your question is not really. I wouldn't say it wasn't necessarily guilt. It was more of a remembrance. Like I once knew this or had this information, or I was almost like, you're born with this information, and now I'd actually found the reality of it.
Yeah. And would you call that awakening? And the reason I'm asking is because you know how to me anyway, it's an overused word in this day and age, that there's this awakening going on, and different people in different cultures would experience it differently. But is it the same thing? Like, is it a consciousness, a growth of awareness? Is that what you're describing, really?
Yes, I would say that. Yes.
Yeah. And when you said it was a process, do you think that it takes time? Or how sometimes you hear people talk about instant. The Course in Miracles talked about the holy instant. Like, is it something that can happen in an instant, or does it necessarily take time?
For me, it took time, and it was a process. And I have a scientific engineering background, so I was determined to find the factual evidence to prove a hypothesis or part of the thesis process. So through that, it built more of a knowing and a fundamental remembrance of what is truth. And so for me, it was the awakening was a process. And the more I got into it, the more I've meditated, the more I pray. I do like meditational prayers like every morning, and so I'll take 20 to 30 minutes for that process and tune myself for the day and listen to different frequencies, and that has really helped me connect with the divine as well. So yeah, it was a process for me. It wasn't like a light switch.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to monopolize the questions here now, but I found this whole thing from start to finish to be really intriguing. And what I would love to ask you now, Andrew, is, do you feel that you are somehow participating in this awakening by sharing this work? And not only that, but do you feel also that you may confront people who have fixed beliefs?
Yeah, I feel almost as if it's an obligation to put this out there. So I really appreciate your help as well with this process. I've never done anything like this before.
Yeah.
In working with you guys just made it really easy to share this and get it out there and get it in this draft from a thesis paper to an actual book. So I really appreciate your help. And but yeah, I think it's getting it out there, and I haven't been confronted by anybody yet, but I'm sure there will be a moment where that's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And so my brother, he is really by the book by the Bible, very more traditional. So I'm waiting for that confrontation to happen.
Right. Yeah. 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 And as we know, that can also cause division too. But
Yeah.
Margaret wants to ask a question there.
Well, it's kind of a rumination. That kind of message has been given a lot of times throughout history. It was the backbone of the ancient Egyptian philosophy. That love thy neighbor as thyself was the heart of how they constructed their society, and they turned it into a set of rules. And then when Yeshua came along, the empire was falling to pieces. So they used the structure of what he'd said and who he was and built a religion of control that turned us into our own jailers. And that's still operating now. And it's become a place of safety because people understand how that works and what it all says. And to step outside of that is very scary. And that's where you're going to get the angry responses from, because it means taking your power back that you've handed over and being taught to hand over. And it's a big, big deal for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of us have gone through that process like you have. But for some folks who haven't, it'd be very scary for them. But it's now is the time for that to happen. And I think it's really, really important, because it's all about who you are and how you are in the world, not about following a set of rules, because they've just become a jail. And we've become jailers. I grew up in the Church of England, so it wasn't quite as heavy duty as the Catholic Church, but it was not far removed from it. So I know where you're coming from.
Yes, I would 100% agree with that.
I agree with you that it's been a process and it's scary to put it out there, but I'm so glad you did, because you gave a method in the book that is easy to follow step by step, but also to know that there's someone else out there who feels the way you do and knows that we are helping to bring more light to the world. It's encouraging, and it helps me on a day-to-day basis to know that there are other people out there. So, and for those people, I have 7 brothers, and half of them, we're divided in our belief system. 4 of them are still very strong Catholics, but it gives a springboard for discussion. And I don't know if you've heard of Ho'oponopono and Hawaiian tradition, and I've been using that too, and it really does help to open hearts, because it promotes love and forgiveness. And whether they know it or not, I've been bombarding them with love and forgiveness, and it seems to open the door a little bit more. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good.
Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
This is Marie, and I just want, first of all, thank you for your work. But if this is the first time this has happened for you, how did it feel to have other people read your words? It was really emotional for me, and I didn't even write the book. It was so lovely to know that you're talking about the frequency, and the frequency of someone else reading your words. The fact that people who aren't even on this call are being reached, and that feels so beautiful. But I just wanted to know how you felt.
It is exciting. It is emotional, kind of almost unbelievable, and I'm just really happy that it's connecting with you all. And if it helps someone, then it's a win. So that's really what it's all about. It's helping each other and trying to get this message across as simply as possible. And if it helps people, that's really what the intent is.
I had to shut off my camera because my internet is going in and out. But I'm Kim, and when I read this book, everything resonated. It was like light bulbs going off. And my mother is a Methodist, so one time I even sent her like a unity book thing, and she threw it away and yelled at me. But the one thing was, about my upbringing was all I knew was mommy loves you, Jesus loves you. She took us to church. She kept getting kicked out of churches. We were Lutheran, then we were Assembly of God, then we were Catholic. My mom's 94, and she's quite the precocious one. But then as I got older, I found out, oh my gosh, there's all these other religions. And then I got into Penny Kelly and consciousness. Then I started hiring all sorts of engineers and PhDs with top secret clearances for all the 3-letter agencies of the government. And fascinating was plasma physicists. And then it circles around and now how plasma is involved. And they were speaking to me then, 10 years ago, about the frequencies. Although they were structured, you know, when you have a PhD, you're in the vertical, you're in the stovepipe. Just as, but so, and I had Dr. Emoto's book and everybody thought I was crazy. So I'm kind of used to everybody thinking I'm not normal. So that's the gift I have of like rose-colored glasses. Like I read this and I was like, oh my God, finally. And I just bought literally, was Dan Willis, who passed away, who had made the Aragon crystals that would match up with certain frequencies and create levitation. And so, long story short, he was interviewing Veda Austin. You know who she is? Okay, she took Emoto's work and she has 100,000 photos. She put a sunflower seed on a disc of water, freezes it slightly, and it creates an image of a sunflower.
Get out of here. What's her name?
Veda, V-E-D-A.
That sounds amazing.
Austin. She has a new book out that
I'm gonna buy.
I mean, now it's creating hieroglyphics. She can put pictures, whatever she puts on there creates. I mean, it goes way past the love and hate about which Emoto was right. And so I'm blown away. Like all this has kind of been happening over the 3 months. It's like I learned about this, then this, then this, then this, and it's all connecting the dots. And then
Kim, do you know what? You're prompting me to tell a quick little story.
Yes,
and
please.
I'm conscious also of the time because we do have to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. But real quick story and talking about families. Right? My brother, 2 years older than me, wasn't at all involved in the Catholic Church altar boy stuff the way I was. He seemed to be kind of very rebellious. But at 18, he left Ireland, went to work in Scotland. And at that point in time, strangely enough, he started to explore other religions. And you mentioned about all the other religions. Well, he went through every religion known to man, I swear. And I'll tell you how I know, because at that point in time, I enjoyed a few drinks, I have to say. And I would arrive in Edinburgh and Aberdeen, and I'd go to see him on my way through. And the first time I'd go through and I'd say to him, you know, Leo, are you coming for a drink? And he said, no, it's against my religion. Sorry, I can't. Next time I'd go, it'd only be like 3 weeks later. Next time I'd go through and Leo, we're going for a drink. I will, but I can only drink wine. Everything else is against my religion. The next time there'd be no drink. The next time he'd have about 10 drinks. And this was the greatest farce of all times. But like in fairness to him, he was exploring, much like you, Andrew. You know, he was questioning, trying it all. And to this day, he hasn't found anything. Interestingly enough, he hasn't found anything that grips him or that he feels resonates with him, right? But I'm sure that if I was to send him this book, there'd be something in it that would resonate with him. You know, because it wasn't organized religion he was after. He was after something deeper, obviously. Yeah.
Send away.
I will indeed. All right, we're almost at the top of the hour. Does anybody want to add in anything before we close?
When you said the time for outsourcing your divinity is over, I just love that. I don't know why that caught me. But the people I have found all resonate with this. Well, and then I have others that have left or I just can't talk about it with. Yeah. But I'm fine because I want to know just one thing. Okay, so you list Essene Gospels, Book of Enoch. Does that include the Gnostic Gospels? Like the Book of Thomas and, you know, the Mary Magdalene, the Apocrypha, the Nag Hammadi scrolls, you know.
Yes. Yeah. So there's thousands of pages.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can't name them all because it's like they all are saying the same thing. But I found it fascinating that you actually interpreted frequencies from his words in Aramaic.
So that was a study that was done by Lars Muhl, M-U-H-L, I think. So he did a study in his book on how the Aramaic language creates certain frequencies that react with the body.
Wow.
So that's where that piece came from. And so I highly recommend reading his book as well. He's got a couple of them out there. But he did that. He studied how the frequency of words impact the human body, in particular the Aramaic language.
Well, words are spelling.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
I have a whole dictionary that, you know, I don't share with people, but that I learned the hard way of be careful what you say.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, good. Okay, we do have to leave it there. I want to express my immense gratitude to you, Andrew, for coming on with us today. And, you know, most of people here would not know, but you've been doing extensive traveling in South Africa and so on. And I know how it's hard to slot this kind of thing in, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come in today. We'd love to, if you could come next week. And certainly the same invitation goes to everybody to come same time next Saturday, same link. And we'll carry on with the next 3 chapters. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Fabulous discussion, fabulous book, Andrew. And we feel blessed and privileged to have been a part of publishing that and making it available to people. And we hope it, like you said, even if it helps one person, it will have done its job. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care. All the best.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Awesome book. Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.